One of the things that's been ongoing, and I don't even know if you want to, this is sort of a disaster in another sense, which is the ongoing protests, Rodney, as we're seeing them in Wisconsin. And I don't know what day count we're at in Portland. I think we're nearing the 90-day count of menace, protesting, violence, rioting, arson, all that stuff. And all of this is starting to have potentially political consequences. And a story here from InformedAmerican.com, Rodney, that you wrote, title here, Portland mayor asks protesters to stop because they're helping Trump. Now, that's good on him to ask them to stop. But anyway, there's a quote here by Wheeler says this is a political point, so it's a little out of field. I don't think for a moment that if you're participating in this activity that you are not being a prop for re-election campaign of Donald Trump, because you absolutely are. You're creating the B-roll film that will be used in ads nationally to help Trump during this campaign. If you don't want to be part of that, then don't show up. Wow, Ted, if you got control of your city, there wouldn't be any B-roll film. And Rodney, what do you think of this being the priority of the mayor, apparently, rather than using his responsibility as a public servant to keep order and calm in the streets?
I think it's disappointing. But I thought he was disappointing for months because he didn't say, hey, if you show up, you're going to be arrested because you're destroying private property, or you're destroying public property, or you're blocking traffic flow, or any of the other things. And we didn't even get to you are shooting mortar rounds at police and shining lasers in their eyes. And so I don't understand how the people of Portland can think that this is good and want this to continue. But clearly he is their elected official.
Right.
And what I haven't seen is widespread calls for his recall for failing to perform the duties. And so dereliction of duty would be pretty easy to prove here. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You did not tell the police to go do this. You didn't give them a directive. And so for him to fall all the way to, hey, you shouldn't do this because you're going to help Trump, seems like a really long way from what his job is, right? And so if he doesn't like Trump, got it. Everybody's got their opinion. You want to tell people that, it helps her, so that's great too. But do your job first and then come back to this.
So am I correct in reading this that Ted Wheeler would let his city burn to the ground if he thought it would hurt Trump?
Well,
is that the calculation?
I'm not going there.
I mean, how else do I mean, we got the positive. What's the flip side here? And I have to wonder. I mean, not that. I mean, I don't want to put completely that blame on there, but, turning a blind eye, letting things go, you have a responsibility regardless of what's going on in the election. And I just don't understand this. We heard this from similar comments from Don Lemon from CNN saying now the rioting is showing up in the polls. It's exactly the same point. Don't, come on, guys, this might help Trump. Not, how about don't burn your city down? Don't, assault police officers and all this stuff. This is kind of unpopular, so maybe. But in the beginning, it was popular, though, Rodney. Polling showed that support for BLM, I believe, for the first time ever, I think, topped over 50% sometime in June. And now that sentiment is underwater. Would you attribute it to this kind of violence in the streets?
Oh, of course. But let's back up there. Support for BLM, Black Lives Matter movement, is not the same as support for arson and looting and rioting and all these things. And so I think the support at the beginning was watching that 9-minute video with George Floyd and saying, and so I think a lot of people watched that video and then, reflected on some other things that have happened and said, there's something we want to change. Now we can argue about that or talk about that, as to what's going on and the numbers and everything else. But they said we want to change. I don't remember many people coming out and saying, what I really want to do is go bust into the Nike store on the Miracle Mile in Chicago and take some shoes, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what's ticking people off. And so I did see an interesting piece that there's not widespread condemnation of such activity. And I think that would have helped the BLM movement quite a bit if they had separated along the way and even today and said, look, we don't just condemn it. We're going to come out with orange spray paint. And when we see somebody doing it, we're going to hit them with the spray paint so you know who they are.
Yeah, well, yeah, that would have been useful. But the thing is, though, these things became intertwined, and while as you say, that the sentiment behind the George Floyd's death and all that, and police reform. But it becomes basically an arm, I guess, a violent wing of a political ideology, sort of. I mean, there's no.
I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it.
No?
Antifa, which is, anti-fascist, which is interesting because they have become fascist, which is you must adhere to our point of view, which is people over property, has been around for years. They've been shouting down speakers. They've been rioting and looting and breaking things. Every time something doesn't go the way that they want, they're 10-year-olds with sticks. And so this is not the BLM movement. These are people that are glomming on and deciding they want to do whatever they want to do. And so I still wish that the BLM movement would separate from them when they're in groups and clearly say, that's not us. And they haven't. And they can. They can. Because these people show themselves every time they pick up a rock or, throw a frozen soda or a can of paint at a police officer.
Rodney, I got a question here. To what extent do you believe there is some sort of a top-down organization of this violence we've seen in the streets? Because it seems to me, all of a sudden, something happens, and then what these people in the black outfits are there with equipment and tactics and medics and a whole host of things that seem to just spring out of nowhere. But they then sort of act like an amorphous blob where, well, I'm not, Antifa doesn't exist. I'm not Antifa or whatever. To what extent do you think that there is some actual organization and people are taking orders one way or another? Do you believe that exists?
No. I don't. Taking orders, I don't believe. I don't believe there's a directive.
Organizationally, I mean, I'm not saying military.
Yeah. But, I don't think there's a point, right? What is the point of what they're doing? And the point is to destroy property, to take things from others, and to essentially create mayhem. There's no end game to this. It's people who've been given a free rein to destroy and loot, and the wider latitude they're given, the more they do it. This harkens all the way back to the speeches at college campuses where the colleges were charging the speaker for security because people were going to come in and break stuff. It's like, but I'm not the one breaking anything. Yeah. And so I don't think there's an organization like that. Now, to your point, there's organization because people share information over social media, right? However they share. And it's easy to do. You can meet people at such events and then create your own group where you talk about it. But it doesn't mean there's a top-down structure saying, hey, this is the type of thing we're going to do. This is exactly when it's going to happen. You go here, and this is the goal at the end. I don't think that's there.
I think it's a gang. I think it's a criminal gang, and it's a political extortion racket. And if the Justice Department was mildly interested, they could roll this thing up very quickly. That's my opinion. But you disagree clearly.
No, I don't. And I think it could be ended very quickly. I think in the interest of allowing people self-expression, we've seen civic leaders instead allow mayhem, and they're not the same thing. And so we're treating them the same way. And what we're getting instead is, wait a second, you mean I can go out and burn stuff every night and I'm never prosecuted? And by the way, the guy in Portland has said, I'm not going to prosecute them. And so they're just, it's like, well, I should go burn every night because I enjoy burning stuff. And you got to remember, Portland's not a small town. I can't remember how many people it is. I want to say 600,000 people. It's not like everybody in Portland's doing it. It's a small group of people that are doing it, but you're going to have that group of idiots anywhere. And if you say, hey, guess what? If you want to go do this, burn, loot, and steal and whatever, they're going to come out every single night until you tell them no.
You are correct. Yeah, I agree 100%. And in fact, if you do pay attention to any of the police blotters, the people who do get arrested, they are charged and quickly released without bail. And some of those people get arrested at the same place night after night. Thankfully to district attorneys and prosecutors who have been put there. They basically are in place to simply not prosecute. So it's really great. I love what's going on.
But remember, the district attorney out there was also elected. Yeah. And so he had a platform. And so this is a lot of this comes back to the voters in the area. And it'll be very interesting to see what they say when they go to the polls the next time.
Well, there's one party rule, Rodney, so you just get a different kind of of the same person of the party. It's not like it's a choice between a Democrat and a Republican in a place in a city like Portland. You just get just a different style. I mean, we're seeing this sort of prosecutorial stuff going up. We've seen it in Chicago. We've seen it around the country. The prosecution is now prosecutorial discretion is now used as a weapon for political action. So, anyways, that's my final word on that.
There you go.
As you grimace and cover your head.